Leo's finger stabbed the air like he could pull her back by force. He was wedged against my hip, small and stubborn, his other hand locked around my wrist like I might disappear if he let go. The ice cream truck window slid open with a soft metal rattle, and the smell hit first. Vanilla, warm like milk. Lemon, bright like summer cutting through heat. Mara Sterling leaned out in a white apron, wearing that ridiculous knit hat again, 3 pastel yarn scoops stacked with a tiny cherry on top. She smiled at my nephew like the world had never taught her to ration kindness. "What'll it be today, heavy lifter?" she asked him. Leo didn't answer her. He looked up at me instead, eyes too serious for 4. "If she were your wife," he said, "I'd sleep." The words didn't land in my head. They landed in my body. My throat went tight like I'd swallowed a stone. Heat rushed up my neck and stopped at my ears. My heart kicked once hard enough to make my breath hitch. The custody evaluator had called it sleep disruption due to transition. My lawyer had called it a normal phase. Leo called it the only thing that mattered with one sentence and no mercy. I forced my face to stay steady. My palm flattened against the back of his shirt, feeling the rapid little engine of his lungs. Mara's smile softened. Not pity, not judgment, just present. She reached for a cone, filled it with vanilla in a smooth spiral, and held it out like an offering. Leo's hand lifted, then stopped. He glanced at me again, asking permission without words. "Go on," I managed. The words scraped out of me. He took the cone with both hands, careful like it was glass. Mara's eyes flicked to my face for half a second, like she'd seen the crack I was trying to hide. Then she turned to the next kid as if she hadn't just changed something in me with a look. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment my life stopped being manageable. I was Eli Thorne, city planner for a town that hated change until it needed a scapegoat. 6 months earlier, my sister and her husband had died on a wet highway outside Providence. 2 weeks after that, a Vanderbilt attorney filed for temporary guardianship due to instability. The word temporary had teeth. Leo lived with me now. My apartment smelled like laundry detergent and fear. His little shoes sat in a neat row by the door because he liked order. I liked it too when my mind wasn't eating itself. The boardwalk was the only place he asked to go without me bribing him. He called the ice cream truck the happy window, so I brought him every Saturday. Same bench, same view. My laptop open with work spread across the screen like a shield. I wasn't just pretending to be productive. I had a coastal zone project due Monday. Setback lines, flood maps, storm surge overlays, and a new GIS layer showing the municipal easement along the seawall. I toggled transparency between parcels, watched boundary lines bloom and disappear. Then I pinned the Vanderbilt estate like a red thumbtack on the map. Sometimes I caught myself staring at the truck instead of the screen. Mara moved like she'd built a life out of small crises. Sticky hands, crying toddlers, a register that jammed at the worst moment. She handled it all with quiet control. No performance, no begging for approval, just competence, clean and unavoidable. She wasn't my type. My type used to be polished, corporate, safe for photos. Women who didn't cause questions. Women who didn't stand out in a custody case. Mara was sunlight and engine grease. Mara was the kind of woman a man like me wasn't supposed to complicate his life with. My phone buzzed. "Sam, my lawyer." Vanderbilt filed an addendum. The text read, "Photos of you associating with a vendor under investigation. They're building a narrative. We need boring. We need stable. Don't hand them anything." I typed back with my thumb while Leo licked vanilla off his knuckles. Copy. I'm boring enough to put a judge to sleep. A shadow fell across my keyboard. Mara had stepped down from the truck, holding a paper cup. "Coffee," she said like she'd decided I looked too hollow to be left alone. "Black. No sugar." "You're welcome." A laugh escaped my mouth that didn't feel like it belonged to me. "I didn't order anything." "Good," she said. "Then you don't owe me." I took it anyway. The cup warmed my fingers. The smell of vanilla and lemon swirled around us from the open window, bright and almost violent. She adjusted her knit hat, the yarn scoops wobbling. "Also," she added casually, "pretty sure that new gazebo violates the coastal setback." My attention snapped to the laptop. "How do you know about that?" "Small town," she said, eyes on the boardwalk, not on me. Then quieter, like she didn't want the words to be too heavy. "And Eleanor Vanderbilt is trying to make me disappear. She hates anything that makes her terrace view feel lived in." Leo leaned against my leg. Mara's gaze dropped to him, and softened again. Something in my chest tightened, but this time it wasn't panic. It was something else. Something dangerous. The first time she touched me, it wasn't romantic. It was physics. A kid darted out of line. Leo, because of course he did, followed him, chasing a dropped dollar like it was treasure. I moved fast, but not fast enough. A bicycle clipped Leo's shoulder. He stumbled. My blood went cold. Mara vaulted down from her truck before I could reach him. She grabbed Leo under the arms, lifted him like he weighed nothing, and set him behind her legs. A human shield. You okay? Her voice was sharp, aimed at Leo. Then it cut toward the cyclist. Watch your path. Kids don't bounce. The cyclist mumbled an apology and pedaled off. Mara crouched and checked Leo's elbows, knees, chin like she'd done it 1,000 times. Leo's fingers caught the yarn cherry on her hat. I like your ice cream head, he announced. Mara's face broke into a grin. Best compliment I've gotten all week. My hands were shaking. I hid them by shoving them into my pockets. Thank you, I said, and hated how small it sounded. Mara stood and dusted her apron. Her eyes held mine for a half-second longer than necessary. You're welcome, she said. Now breathe, city planner. I exhaled like I'd been holding it since the funeral. That night, a letter arrived at my apartment. A notice of hearing for Mara Sterling's mobile vendor permit. Signed by Councilman Higgins. Stamped with urgency. A handwritten note clipped to it in neat, cruel script. No exceptions, no sympathy. Remove the eyesore. Eleanor Vanderbilt didn't write notes. She made other people write them, which meant she was serious. I stared at the paper until the edges blurred. Leo's bedtime routine had finally worked, and he was asleep in his small bed, one hand wrapped around his stuffed turtle. His breathing was soft and even. Rare. Precious. If she were your wife, I'd sleep. I didn't know what scared me more. The fact that my nephew was right, or the fact that I wanted it too. Because if I stepped into Mara Sterling's fight, Vanderbilt would come for me harder. And if I didn't, I was teaching Leo that the only way to survive was to stay quiet while good people got erased. I folded the hearing notice, slipped it into my jacket, and made a decision I knew my lawyer would hate. Saturday was coming. And so was Town Hall. Town Hall smelled like old paper, floor polish, and people pretending they weren't afraid of each other. The building looked friendly from the outside with its white columns and flower boxes. Inside, it felt like a place where decisions got made in quiet voices and then blamed on policy. Mara stood at the back of the room with her arms folded, chin lifted. Her apron was still on, like armor. That knitted ice cream hat was gone, but somehow she looked even more herself without it. Strong, tired, unwilling to beg. Leo squeezed my hand, sticky and warm. He'd insisted on coming because he thought he was the reason this was happening. He wasn't. But I didn't know how to explain to a 4-year-old that rich people can be bored and cruel at the same time. I shouldn't have been there. Sam's warning still rang in my head. Be boring. Be stable. Don't give them anything. The Vanderbilt attorney sat 2 rows ahead, already turning his head like a hawk tracking movement. Councilman Higgins cleared his throat and smiled like he loved hearing his own voice through a microphone. Miss Sterling has been cited for repeated violations, he announced. Unauthorized commercial use, improper placement, safety hazards near the seawall. Mara's jaw tightened. No tears. No pleading. Just control. Eleanor Vanderbilt sat behind Higgins in a navy coat that looked expensive and cold. Her posture said she owned the room even without the gavel. She didn't look at Mara like she was a person. She looked at her like a stain. Higgins nodded to the projector screen. A map popped up. Grainy. Cropped. Red circles slapped over the boardwalk like targets. I knew those layers. They were outdated. They were wrong. And they were being used like truth. My laptop was in my bag. The same coastal zone GIS file was still open from the bench. Setback lines, easements, ordnance callouts, the kind of boring work that kept storm water out of living rooms. I could fix this with a swipe and a few calm sentences. But I could also ruin my custody case with one public fight. Leo tugged my sleeve. Say something, he whispered. Mara's eyes flicked toward me. Not asking for rescue. Not even expecting it. Just acknowledging I was there. My feet moved before my brain finished arguing. Point of clarification, I said, loud enough to cut through the murmurs. Heads turned. Higgins's eyes narrowed. Mr. Thorne, he said, voice sharp. This is not your docket. It's my jurisdiction, I replied, and pulled my phone up. One swipe. Two. The map loaded clean and precise, with the municipal easement clearly marked along the seawall. I stepped closer to the screen so everyone could see. The Vanderbilt estate property line ends at the seawall, I said. The boardwalk is municipal easement. Commercial use is allowed under Ordinance C4 in this section. The room went still. Higgins glanced at Eleanor. Eleanor didn't blink. She didn't have to. Her attorney's pen stopped moving. Mara turned fully toward me. Her eyes were wide. Not grateful. Not shocked. Alert, like she'd spotted an opening and was deciding whether to trust it. Higgins's voice tightened. We will review the maps. He hit the gavel fast. Motion tabled. Air moved again in the room, like someone finally let people breathe. As everyone filed out, Mara caught up with me in the hallway. The smell of lemon and vanilla clung to her like it lived in her skin. You lied, she said softly. I corrected. I said, and my pulse still wouldn't settle. You're putting your custody case at risk, she said. I know. She studied my face close enough that her presence filled my lungs. Why do it, she asked. A dozen answers lined up. None were safe. So I gave her the truth, the smallest piece I could afford. Because Leo asked me to, I said. Mara's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Almost. Then tell Leo, she said. The game just got bigger. She wasn't wrong. The next week, I didn't go near the ice cream truck during daylight. If Vanderbilt wanted photos, I wasn't giving them an easy shot. Mara didn't text me like we were flirting. She didn't call to thank me. She just sent one message with an address and 2 words. After closing, she parked the truck inside a garage near the docks, a place that smelled like salt, diesel, and cold metal. The first night I walked in, the engine coughed when she turned the key. Mara's shoulders tensed like she was bracing for a punch. Don't panic, I said, sliding under the hood. My hands found familiar shapes. Wires. Clamps. A loose ground. A practical problem. A solvable thing. I tightened the connection, cleaned the terminal, checked the oil. Grease streaked my knuckles. When the engine finally purred, Mara exhaled so hard her apron lifted. She leaned against the workbench, watching me wipe my hands on a rag. Her eyes stayed on the details. How I moved. How I didn't hesitate. How I stayed quiet until something worked. You do this a lot? She asked. Fix things that break. I shrugged. It's what I'm good at. Dangerous, she murmured. I looked up. Dangerous. A man who fixes what's in front of him, she said, voice low. Even when it costs him. I should have stepped back. Instead, my fingers hooked the hem of her apron and tugged it straight where it had twisted. A small touch. Safe. Her breath caught. Anyway, her hand closed around my wrist. Not stopping me. Holding. Don't start something you can't finish, she said. My pulse jumped. The garage light threw warm shadows across her cheekbones. Then tell me to stop, I said. Her thumb pressed once against my skin. A tiny, clear permission. Don't, she whispered. That was the first kiss. Fast. Colliding. More impact than sweetness. Her fingers slid up to my jaw, holding me there like she'd made a decision. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. But the space between us wasn't regret. It was voltage. After that, we fell into a rhythm. Not romantic gestures. Work. I fixed the loose hinge on her truck door that had been squealing for weeks. She showed me how to fold paper liners so they didn't slide in the heat. I replaced a cracked hose under her tiny sink in the truck's wash nook, water splashing my forearms. She handed me a towel without a word and moved cleaning bottles out of my way like she'd been sharing space with me forever. At my apartment, she didn't flirt with Leo. She built him back up. Crayons. Simple games. A strict bedtime. When he protested, she didn't negotiate. She sat on the floor and started drawing beside him until he joined. She didn't try to be his mom. She just made the room feel safe. One night, she caught me staring at the custody calendar on my fridge. Red marks, deadlines, hearings. My whole life reduced to boxes. Mara leaned in and tapped the dates with her fingernail. Color-coded, she said. Red for lawyers, I muttered. Green for Leo time, she added. Blue for you. I repeated without thinking. Her eyes lifted to mine. I felt the air tighten again. Blue for me, she said quietly. The words landed like a promise I didn't know I was making. Then the twist came, not with a kiss. With a knock. A man in a city polo shirt appeared at Mara's garage with a clipboard and 2 officers behind him. Inspection, he announced like the word itself was a weapon. Mara's smile didn't reach her eyes. After hours? She asked. Anonymous complaint, he said. Possible unauthorized modifications. My stomach tightened. Eleanor didn't fight fair. She didn't have to. They checked the truck top to bottom. Seal, sink, extinguisher, wiring. Everything Mara kept immaculate. Then the inspector crouched by the rear tire and frowned. Audit seal is cracked. Mara's face went still. That seal was fine yesterday. The inspector stood, already bored with her. Suspension pending review, he said. Effective immediately. It felt like someone had reached into the air and switched off the only warm thing in my nephew's world. Mara's whole livelihood got yanked in the dark by a man who smelled like bureaucracy. I'll fix it, I said before thinking. Mara's gaze snapped to me. Don't. If you get caught, she warned, voice sharp, Vanderbilt will use it. I'm not fixing the seal, I said slowly. I reached into my bag, pulled out my laptop, and flipped it open. Coastal layers. Ordinances. Filing dates. I'm finding the person who called this in, I said. Mara let out a short, sharp laugh. You're an urban planner, Eli. You don't hunt. My jaw clenched. Tonight, I do. She stepped close. So close my breath hit her hair. Her hand grabbed the front of my shirt. Not gentle, not polite. Promise me you won't disappear, she said. I covered her hand with mine. Look at me, I said. Her eyes locked on my face. If I go after her, I continued, it'll get ugly. Then softer, because it mattered. If you want me to stop, tell me now. Mara's grip tightened. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up. Don't stop, she whispered. And I knew right then that the next move I made would decide more than a permit. It would decide who Leo thought I was, and who Mara thought I could be. The boardwalk went quiet without Mara. It happened so fast it felt unreal. No line of kids. No sticky fingers. No vanilla on the wind. Just tourists walking past her usual spot like it had never mattered. Someone had drawn a chalk arrow on the planks, pointing toward where the truck always parked. Now it pointed at nothing. Leo noticed before anyone. On Saturday morning, he dragged his little folding stool to our bench and sat with it in his lap like he was guarding a memory. He kept looking up the street, waiting for the happy window to appear. When it didn't, his shoulders sank. He didn't cry. He got quiet, and that was worse. At home, he drew the ice cream truck over and over. A bright rectangle with a smiling window. Sometimes he drew Mara's hat. Sometimes he didn't. Those were the days he barely spoke. I kept the apartment too clean. I fixed things that didn't need fixing. I tightened cabinet handles. I replaced a deadbolt screw. I organized the pantry by label color. Anything to keep my hands busy while my chest felt hollow. Mara texted me from the doc's garage late that night. They scheduled a public hearing, she wrote. Permanent revocation. Next Thursday. My stomach dropped. I checked my calendar without even thinking. Thursday. 4 p.m. final custody interview with the court-appointed social worker in my apartment. 4:30 p.m. town hall hearing for Mara. 2 clocks. One life. I called Sam. Tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking, he said as soon as he answered. I haven't decided, I lied. You cannot be anywhere near that hearing, Sam snapped. Vanderbilt wants you on record looking unstable. They want you choosing drama over your child. She's getting crushed with lies, I said. Welcome to the world, Sam replied. We win by being boring. You show up. You smile. You do the interview. You keep your life clean. That is how you keep Leo. After I hung up, I stared at Leo asleep on the couch, his turtle tucked under his chin, his lashes resting like tiny shadows on his cheeks. He looked peaceful for once, like the world wasn't always slipping. If she were your wife, I'd sleep. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and pulled up everything I had. Ordinances, hearing notices, inspection logs, the anonymous complaint timeline, the audit seal report, the names on the paperwork. Then I found something that made my blood go cold. The inspector's report had a photo of the cracked seal. The crack was fresh, clean, and angled, like it was cut, not worn. Someone didn't find a problem. Someone made one. I drove to the doc's garage after Leo went to bed. The air down there smelled like salt, diesel, and cold metal. Mara's truck sat under a single hanging light, looking smaller without kids around it. Mara stood with her arms folded, no apron, no hat. Just a woman holding herself together with stubbornness. You shouldn't be here, she said when I walked in. I know, I replied. She looked at me like she wanted to argue, but her eyes were tired. What did you find? I held up the photo on my phone. That crack isn't where. It's a cut. Mara's jaw tightened. They sabotaged it. They did, I said. Mara exhaled slowly. Eleanor is doing it through people, so her hands stay clean. I can prove it, I said. Mara's gaze lifted. How? I need the truck's maintenance log, I said. Every inspection, every repair, every date. I need your permit file. And I need your exact parking coordinates from the boardwalk, not the ones Higgins keeps showing. Mara stared for a beat, then turned and grabbed a binder off a shelf like she'd been ready for this. Here, she said. Our fingers brushed when she handed it to me. The touch shouldn't have mattered. It did anyway. It felt like trust. Eli, she said, softer. If you go after them, they'll come harder for you. They already are, I replied. Her eyes flicked to my mouth like she was fighting herself. Then she stepped close and grabbed the front of my shirt, not gentle. Promise me you won't disappear, she said. I covered her hand with mine. Look at me. She did. If I go after her, I said, it gets ugly. Then I lowered my voice because the truth didn't fit inside my chest. If you want me to stop, tell me now. Mara's grip tightened. Don't stop, she whispered. I didn't kiss her. Not then. Kissing her in that moment felt like I'd be taking comfort when she needed proof. So I did the only thing I could do. I got to work. The next 3 days were a blur. I took the permit file and mashed it to ordinances. I pulled the municipal easement map and printed it with clean dates. I requested the inspection schedule record from Town Hall and found the same staff initials showing up on complaints that always touched Vanderbilt interests. Then I found the one thing I needed most. A maintenance stamp from a city clerk on Mara's audit seal log, dated 2 days before the inspection. It said seal intact. That meant the seal was cut after the last official check. That meant the violation was created. I had enough to fight, not in a dramatic way, in the only way that matters in a courtroom and in a council room, with receipts. Thursday came too fast. At 3:30 p.m., Mrs. Gable arrived at my apartment for the custody interview. Late 50s. Hair pulled tight. Clipboard. Pen. No warmth. She looked around like she was searching for flaws in the air. Mr. Thorne, she said, voice flat. Leo seems quiet. He's grieving, I said, then hated how neat the word sounded. Mrs. Gable's eyes flicked up. Let's talk about your support system. My watch felt loud. 3:37, 3:38, 3:39. Leo wandered into the living room holding a drawing. 3 stick figures. One small, one tall, one with a giant hat, all smiling. This is my family, he announced, holding it up like evidence. Mrs. Gable took the paper. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Who is this woman? My mouth went dry. 3:41. In my head, Sam's voice. Be boring. Be safe. In my chest, Leo's voice. If she were your wife, I'd sleep. I swallowed. Her name is Mara Sterling, I said. She's an ice cream vendor on the boardwalk. Mrs. Gable's pen hovered. And why is she in his drawing? Because she's kind to him, I said. And because she's in trouble. Mrs. Gable's eyes sharpened. This interview is court-ordered, Mr. Thorne. I understand, I said. 3:44. I stood up. Mrs. Gable's pen lifted like a warning. If you step out that door during this process, I'm required to document it. The word hit hard. Document. Like a stamp. Leo looked between us, sensing the shift, his small face tightening with worry. I met Mrs. Gable's stare. You need to evaluate my ability to protect this family, I said. This is how I protect them. You can follow and record the truth, or you can sit here and record a guess. Silence. Mrs. Gable's lips pressed tight. Her eyes stayed skeptical, but she snapped her clipboard shut. Fine, she said. I'm documenting everything. Leo's face lit up like someone turned the world back on. Mara, he shouted, already reaching for his shoes. I grabbed his coat and my bag in one motion, my heart pounding like I was stepping off a ledge. Town hall was packed. Phones were out. Whispers buzzed. The air had that hungry feeling people get when they think they're about to watch someone get embarrassed. Eleanor Vanderbilt sat in the front row like she belonged on a throne. Calm. Perfect. Not worried. Mara stood at the podium, shoulders squared, hands braced on the wood. No apron now. No hat. Still, she looked like she belonged there more than any of them. Councilman Higgins tapped the mic. Miss Sterling's permit is under review due to repeated violations, he announced. Coastal safety hazards. To breathe. Her hand squeezed my wrist once hard. I kept my voice calm, not dramatic. Calm was stronger. I'm not asking for special treatment, I said. I'm asking for equal enforcement. Then I clicked to another file. And if safety is your concern, I added, the council should address the unpermitted gazebo extension built on Vanderbilt frontage last spring. It violates the same coastal setback you're claiming Ms. Sterling broke. Whispers exploded. Higgins's face reddened. Eleanor stood slowly, controlled, like she was stepping into her favorite role. Enough, she said, voice smooth and cold. Silence fell. She looked at Higgins, then at the crowd, then at me like I was an insect that learned to speak. Withdraw the motion, she said. Table it indefinitely. Higgins hesitated. Eleanor didn't blink. He swallowed and struck the gavel. Motion withdrawn, he said. Permit reinstated pending standard review. Air rushed back into my lungs. Mara's shoulders sagged for half a second, then she straightened like she refused to look weak even in relief. Mrs. Gable's pen scratched fast behind us. Mara turned toward me, eyes shining and furious at the same time. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. I know, I said. She stepped close, so close her breath hit my mouth. I told you not to destroy your case for me, she said, voice shaking now that the fight was over. I didn't have a safe answer, so I gave her the real one. I could have ruined it by teaching Leo that love is optional, I said. Mara's eyes softened, then hardened again like she was trying not to cry in public. Then her fingers slid into my shirt at my waist, holding me there. Don't disappear, she whispered. I won't, I promised. Outside, on the steps of Town Hall, Eleanor passed us like a queen leaving a stage. She paused one stair above, eyes landing on Leo holding Mara's hand with both of his. Children require stability, Eleanor said. They have it, I replied. Eleanor's gaze moved to Mara. Long cold. I expect discretion, she said. Mara lifted her chin. Understood. Eleanor nodded once, satisfied, and walked away. War postponed, not ended. And as Mara's truck sat down the street waiting like a held breath, I realized the next battle wouldn't be about permits. It would be about custody. And whether the truth I put on record today would save my family or cost me everything tomorrow. The next morning, my apartment felt different. Not calmer, not safe, just awake. The kind of awake you get after a storm when you step outside and realize the air still tastes like lightning. Leo was on the couch with his turtle, cheeks flushed from sleep, hair sticking up in the back. He looked like a kid again instead of a tiny judge watching my choices. Mara stood at my sink with her sleeves rolled up, washing a bowl Leo left in the living room like it belonged there. No apron, no knit hat, just her hands, steady, and the faint lemon soap smell clinging to her skin. Mrs. Gable sat at my table with her clipboard, eyes sharp and tired, the kind of tired that comes from seeing too many families break apart. I'm continuing the interview, she said. Now. I nodded once. Okay. Mara froze for half a second, then set the bowl in the drying rack and stepped back. Not leaving, not inserting herself, just giving space. Like she understood that being support did not mean being loud. Mrs. Gable's gaze moved to Mara. You're here. I was with Leo during the hearing, Mara said simply. He needed someone steady. Mrs. Gable's pen hovered. And you and Mr. Thorne are what, exactly? Mara looked at me, not asking me to lie, not asking me to claim her, waiting for the truth we could both live with. I swallowed. We're building something, I said. Slow, careful, with rules. Mrs. Gable's eyebrow lifted. Rules. Yes, I said. No secrets. No hiding. No chaos around Leo. Mara's mouth twitched like she wanted to laugh at my sudden seriousness, but she didn't. She just nodded. Mrs. Gable flipped a page on her clipboard. Mr. Thorne, she said, you chose to leave a court-ordered interview to attend a public hearing. Explain that decision. My chest tightened. I could have given a polished answer. A safe answer. A pretty answer. Instead, I gave her the one that was true. Because the hearing was a test, I said. Not for Mara. For me. They wanted to see if I would stay quiet to protect my image. They wanted to see if I'd teach Leo that we don't stand up when someone is being crushed. Mrs. Gable's eyes narrowed. And you think that makes you stable? I think stability is not avoiding problems, I said. It's handling them with witnesses and facts, not rage. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I brought the real data. I exposed the lie. Mara's fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. Mrs. Gable's voice stayed flat. You brought your child to town hall. I did, I said. Because I didn't have time to find childcare, and because I wasn't going to leave him alone. He watched me do it calmly. He watched me tell the truth. Mrs. Gable stared at me for a long beat. Then she looked at Leo's drawing still on the table. This is my family, she read softly, almost to herself. Mara didn't move. She didn't lean into that moment like it was a victory. She respected it like it was fragile. Mrs. Gable's pen finally scratched again. Tell me about bedtime, she said. It was the most normal question in the world, and it almost made me laugh from relief. I told her about the calendar, the color coding, the green nights that were just Leo and me, the blue nights that meant Mara came by after the truck closed. I told her about the strict routine Mara didn't bend. I told her about the way Leo fell asleep faster when someone read to him without checking their phone. Mara didn't interrupt. She didn't perform. When Mrs. Gable asked her something, Mara answered it with short truth. Yes, she said. I enforce bedtime. Yes. I show up when I say I will. No. I don't drink around him. No. I don't want to replace his mother. I want him to feel safe. That last line landed in the room like a nail set clean. Mrs. Gable closed her folder. I've seen men chase women and call it love, she said, standing. I've seen women chase security and call it family. What I saw yesterday was different. My pulse jumped. What did you see? I asked. Mrs. Gable looked at me. I saw a man choose truth with witnesses, and I saw a woman hold a child steady without turning him into a pawn. That is not common. Mara's breath hitched quietly behind me. Mrs. Gable moved toward the door, then paused. Mr. Thorne, she added, Eleanor Vanderbilt will not stop. She will change tactics. I know, I said. Mrs. Gable's eyes flicked to Mara. Make sure the child stays out of the crossfire, she warned. Mara's voice was calm. He will. When she left, the apartment got quiet in a way that felt like something had been decided. Leo blinked awake on the couch, looked around, and then smiled when he saw Mara. You came back, he said. Mara walked over and crouched in front of him. I did, she said. Leo rubbed his eyes hard. Does that mean I can sleep now? My throat tightened so fast I almost choked. Mara glanced up at me, eyes glossy, then back at Leo. It means you're safe, she said. Leo leaned into her without thinking, small arms wrapping her neck. Mara held him carefully, like she was holding something sacred, something she didn't want to break. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. Sam, call me now, the text said. I stepped into the hallway and called. You stirred a hornet's nest, Sam said immediately. But it might have worked. Might, I repeated. The council hearing being withdrawn makes Vanderbilt look like they used power to manipulate outcomes, Sam said. And Mrs. Gable being present gives us something we didn't have before. A neutral witness who watched you stay calm under attack. What's the downside? I asked. Sam exhaled. Vanderbilt's attorney just filed a motion to introduce moral instability claims. They'll try to paint Mara as a distraction and you as impulsive. I leaned my forehead against the wall. What do we do? I asked. We do what you did yesterday, Sam said. We stay clean. We stay factual. We bring witnesses. And Eli, his voice lowered. If you're serious about her, it needs to be steady. Not secret. Secrets look like shame. I ended the call and walked back into my apartment. Mara was at my kitchen table, helping Leo color. She had picked the blue crayon and was filling in the ice cream hat on the drawing. Leo had chosen green for me, because he said green was calm. Mara looked up when I entered. What is it? She asked. They're coming for us, I said honestly. Mara's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. I know. I sat down beside her, close enough that our shoulders touched. Leo kept coloring like he trusted the world again. Mara's hand slid under the table and found mine. I'm not scared of her, Mara said quietly. I'm scared of you disappearing when it gets heavy. I turned my hand and laced our fingers together. I won't, I said. Her eyes searched my face, testing the promise. Say it like you mean it, she whispered. I'm here, I said. I'm staying. Mara exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath for months. That night, we went to the boardwalk. Not for the truck, not for work, just because Leo asked. The air was cooler, the ocean dark and steady. The bench was empty, waiting. The spot where Mara usually parked felt like a wound and a hope at the same time. Leo climbed onto the bench, legs swinging. Mara stood beside me, hands in her jacket pockets, her hair loose and moving with the breeze. You know, she said, I never wanted to be someone's reason. I looked at her. And now? She glanced at Leo, then back at me. Now I want to be the reason he believes people come back. My chest went tight. I reached for her hand openly, right there on the boardwalk, not hiding. Her fingers slipped into mine like they belonged. Leo looked up at us, studied our hands, then nodded like he approved. Okay, he said, and rested his head against Mara's side. Mara's breath caught. She placed her palm gently on his hair. Eli, she whispered, if we do this, we do it right. We do it right, I agreed. She looked up at me, eyes bright in the boardwalk lights. No secrets, she said. No secrets, I repeated. She rose on her toes and kissed me, slow this time, not a collision. A choice. A promise. The kind of kiss you make when you're done running. When we broke apart, Leo yawned huge, like his body finally believed what his heart had been asking for. Mara smiled at him. Time to go home, heavy lifter. Leo didn't argue. He didn't spiral. He didn't cling. He just took my hand with one hand and Mara's with the other and walked between us like we were exactly what he drew. That night, after Mara left, I tucked Leo into bed. He rolled onto his side, hugged his turtle, and whispered, half asleep, like he was confessing a secret to the dark. If she was your wife, he murmured, I'd sleep. I sat on the edge of his bed and brushed his hair back. Then we'll earn it, I whispered. Leo's breathing slowed. His shoulders softened. And for the first time in months, my apartment went quiet in the way it was supposed to. Not empty. Safe.
If this story stays with your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you.